Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us here in person and online for this important Beloit Board of Education Candidate Forum. If you're in our live audience, this would be the time to grab that device and put it on mute or shut it off or do something so that it doesn't ringle, tingle, or do any other thing like that and interrupt the flow of tonight. We appreciate that. Tonight, our candidates will make the case to you, the voters, as to why you should vote for them on the upcoming election on April 7th. Tonight's forum is being live streamed on both the Beloit School District and the Lavos de Beloit YouTube channels. The on-demand version will be available on the Beloit School District and Rock County First YouTube channels and the Lavos de Beloit Facebook page. A special thanks to the School District of Beloit for hosting us here tonight, to our candidates for stepping forward to serve our community, and to our co-sponsors of tonight's forum. They include the Greater Beloit Chamber of Commerce, the Greater Beloit Economic Development Corporation, and Rock County First. As we get started, just a reminder that you can help yourself to the refreshments in the back of the room as we go through the evening here. Tonight's theme is simple but powerful: building a stronger Beloit together. Tonight's co-sponsors believe strong schools are the foundation of a thriving community for students, for teachers, families, businesses, and really the entire community. Research backs this up, showing that better educational outcomes lift everyone in a community. So based on the community's input, our discussion tonight will primarily center upon the top challenges facing the district today, with particular focus on improving the district's academic achievement performance, fiscal responsibility, and teacher retention. If you would like to submit a question from the audience, you can ask for a note card, raise your hand, and someone will pick it up when you're finished. We ask the candidates to focus their answers on practical solutions which they have direct control over as board members and which will directly address these top challenges. The candidates have drawn numbers at random to set the speaking order, and they are sitting in that order. With each subsequent question, the next candidate in line will be the first to answer. We will start with opening statements from each candidate, who will have 2 minutes. Candidates will then have up to 2 minutes to respond to questions. If a candidate mentions another candidate by name during their response, that candidate will be given the opportunity for up to a 1-minute response. Finally, the candidates will be given up to a minute on their closing statements as to why they believe they are the best candidate to address these challenges and others that are faced by the school district. Our timekeeper, seated in the front row right there by the big computer monitor, will operate a digital clock which is visible to myself and all the candidates, indicating the time that is left for them to respond. And we just want to remind the candidates to turn on their microphone when they are responding and turn it off when they have completed their response. And we kindly ask the audience members to hold applause till the very end of tonight's forum. All right, with that, let us begin with 2-minute opening statements from the candidates, starting with Dan Schoof. Is that right? No, that's not right. I'm already off one. I'm sorry. Starting with Carol Fox. Let's get started right here. With Carol Fox, then each other candidate will have up to 2 minutes to continue their opening statements. Carol, your opening statement, please.
Good evening. I'm Carol Fox, and I'm honored to be here tonight. And thank you to the Greater Beloit Chamber, Greater Economic Development Corporation, and Rock County First for hosting this event. I've been a Beloiter for 35 years. For nearly 2 decades, I served our district's families as an elementary principal. Prior to coming to Beloit, I was an elementary teacher in Minnesota and an elementary principal in Michigan. After retirement, I continued to work for our district as a leadership mentor and worked as a supervisor for pre-service teachers at working with local colleges, most of that work being done with Beloit College. As you can see, I have an extensive background in education, and my career has been focused on creating safe, challenging learning environments for every child. I'm running for the Beloit Board of Education because my highest priority is and always will continue to be student success and academic excellence. We need to be honest about our current performance, as the data we see needs to be a call to action. I believe we can achieve excellence by maintaining a safe, supportive environment for students, investing in high-quality instructional staff, and hiring and maintaining an effective district leadership. I believe in Beloit, and I believe that by working together, we can move this district in a positive direction, and I would be honored to be able to continue serving our students and staff and community on the Board of Education. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Let's hear next from Dan Schoof. Dan, your opening statement.
Thanks, Tim. Good evening. I'm Dan Schoof, and I'm running for a position on the Beloit School Board. Thank you to the Greater Beloit Chamber of Commerce, the GDB EDC, and Rock County First for hosting tonight. And thanks to everyone who's taken the time to participate in these forums over the last few weeks. Thank you to my fellow candidates. I'm a lifelong Beloiter. My grandfather moved to Beloit to take a job teaching in the Beloit Public Schools before World War II. My wife Alyssa and I raised our 2 kids here in Beloit, sending them throughout the entire way through the Beloit Public Schools. Our son Cullen graduated in 2019 from Beloit Memorial, and our daughter Devin graduated in 2023 from Beloit Memorial. I believe in this community and its public schools. Like you, I love this community. Over the course of this campaign, I've had conversations with hundreds of people across Beloit. What I hear is consistent. People want student achievement at the center, of course. They want strong leadership, they want responsible budgeting, and they want a board that rebuilds trust. That's what I'm going to be talking about today. You're going to hear me talk a lot about the role of a good board, what a good board should and shouldn't do. I spent my career leading complex public institutions. I represented Beloit in the State Assembly a long time ago, 3 terms there. Then I went to work for the state government, leaving the state government as one of its top administrators. I went on to spend 14 years at Beloit College during very complicated times, including COVID, leading a complex project like the Powerhouse. A board's role is not to micromanage. Its role is to set expectations, follow state statutes, Chapter 120, oversee performance, and stay focused on results. I'm not running to bring an agenda. I'm trying to keep student achievement at the center, have strong budgeting, strong leadership, and rebuilding trust. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. All right, next opening statement from Celestino Ruffini.
Good evening, and thank you to the Greater Beloit Chamber of Commerce, the Greater Beloit Economic Development Corporation, and Rock County First for conducting this forum tonight. Also, a special welcome to those watching via La Voz de Beloit's live stream this evening. Thank you as well to all the candidates for participating in this 3rd and final forum of the election season. I'm writing for the Board of Education because every voice in our community deserves to be heard and represented. I want to represent residents who believe in strong public schools, business owners who know today's students are tomorrow's workforce, teachers who want a stable, consistent leadership and a district that supports their success, and retirees who remember when our schools were a point of pride and wonder how we'll regain that strength. I also want to stand for the families who expect more out of this district, community leaders who refuse to accept low student achievement as our standard, and for the students whose voice isn't heard when decisions are made. I care deeply about this district. My family has made it our priority. Our son, a 6th grader at Aldrich, has deeply benefited from dual language instruction since the age of 4, and we've seen firsthand what is possible when programs are strong and expectations are high. In my professional work, I regularly interact with students from Beloit Memorial, and I continue to be impressed by their talent and resilience. I'm running because this community deserves a school district that reflects its values, ambition, and potential. Strong schools are essential to a strong Beloit. With focused leadership, accountability, and high expectations, we can move forward together, and I'm ready to serve. Thank you much.
Thank you, Celestino. Next opening statement comes from candidate Bill Johnson. Bill, to your mic on, I think.
This one?
There you go.
Now it is. Thank you all for coming. I'm Bill Johnson, a lifetime resident of Beloit. I've been here twice as long as Carol, 70 years. My mother graduated from school in 1939 from Beloit Memorial. I graduated in 73. I had another nephew graduate in 88 and a great nephew in 2017, so they've been here a long time. I worked for the city of Beloit. I was a street supervisor. And I always tell everybody, I never put any snow on your driveway. It was the other people. After that, I went to work. I did the budget every year for the or for the street department. We came in under budget every single year, so I'm very good with other people's money. I went to work for Compass and Aramark and delivered food and supplies to the schools, so I was in almost every school every day. I've seen a lot of things that we need to improve on and a lot of things that were really good, a lot of good students. I don't have any kids. I have no agenda. I'm not trying to, get anything across. I'm here for the kids, and that's the main thing. And student achievement, retaining teachers, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. All right, I think that our rule extends into opening statements. So, Carol, your name was invoked. If you'd like to question Bill's math, feel free. All right. And finally, we will hear from candidate Amy Levy. Amy.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I want to start by thanking the organizers of this event and our moderator for providing an opportunity to hear from candidates, to hear us share our perspectives on important issues. My name is Amy Levy, and I am proud to say that I am both a graduate of and a current Board of Education member for the School District of Beloit. For the past 6 years, I've had the privilege of serving on the board and working to support students, families, and staff across our district. The success of this district is deeply personal to me. My husband and I are raising 2 amazing Purple Knights. That perspective, both as a board member and a parent, keeps me grounded in what matters the most, making sure every student has access to a high-quality education and the support needed to succeed. Throughout my time on the board, my focus remains consistent: academic success, financial stability, and strong family and community engagement. I believe that when we invest in our students, manage our resources responsibly, and build meaningful partnerships with families, we create a stronger future for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. All right, our first 2 questions have to do with improving academic achievement within the district. Each candidate, again, has up to 2 minutes to respond to the questions, and this is where we'll start with Dan Schoof. For the rest of the candidates, I'll read the complete question here for Dan. I will give it to you in paraphrased version just to shorten things up a little bit as we go through, but if you want it read exactly as written, please let me know and I will do that. Question is, it's common knowledge that the district ranks near the bottom of public schools across Wisconsin when looking at academic achievement. What initiatives will you take or support in order to help improve academic performance across the district?
Thanks, Tim. Great question. So the number one thing a school board can do collectively to raise academic achievement is to support strong leadership in here, this building, the Colak Center. That's what a board is, duties are set out in Chapter 120.13 of the state statutes. It talks about what a school board is supposed to do. And how that impacts Beloit specifically is our first job is to convince Dr. Anderson to stay another year in his interim role and longer if he and his wife would agree. But in the meantime, we would go and search for a permanent superintendent here at Beloit. And I know that someone tonight will read the list of the superintendents we've had since Betty Lang. And it's been too many. We need to hire a superintendent that will dig in and stay. That's the number one thing we can do for student achievement. Now, as a preview to what we might have to face here in the future, that superintendent or Dr. Anderson before that may tell us that we need more resources or we need to do things differently in the district. And that's where our board steps in, evaluates what's suggested by the professionals, and ultimately we reach consensus and support that. From there, a board needs to annually approve an appropriate budget that takes into account the resources provided by the state and the local communities. And then I talk a lot about rebuilding trust in the school board, And I think that's going to be vital if we ever need to go to citizens across this school district of Beloit to seek a referendum. We need to rebuild trust to do that. That directly would tie to student achievement. So thanks for the question.
Thank you, Dan. Celestina Ruffini, what initiatives will you take or support in order to help advance the academic performance in the district?
It'll be interesting tonight because my colleague here didn't mention my name, so no chance for rebuttal yet, but we'll play that game. So you're my colleague as well as everyone else up here. We'll, I'm sure, talk a lot about superintendent tonight, and I absolutely agree with many of the steps that my colleague here on my right mentioned. So superintendent for me is first and foremost, but you know, the fourth priority within my whole campaign is focusing on what should happen in our schools and not how it needs to happen, because the how is the superintendent. We have one person to hire, and that's the superintendent. And ultimately, student achievement performance needs to change, and it's the superintendent's role to make that happen. I believe if I were asked, as I'm asked specifically about this, outside the superintendent, the focus has to be on building principles and the culture and the climate that our teachers are working within. The quality of our teachers is outstanding, and it needs to be upheld that the teachers are on the front lines and they are doing amazing work, and we need to ensure that the quality of the teachers remains, because if we have great building principals and wonderful teachers, we will have a positive school climate that's going to do more towards boosting achievement than any of the measures we could sit here and recommend. So a positive school climate led by the building principals, our teachers, but at the top, our superintendent. That's what's going to strengthen our schools, prepare them for the future, and build the confidence they need to be a great Purple Knight and graduate and live a great life.
Thank you, Celestino. Next to tackle that question will be Bill Johnson. Bill, your initiatives that you might support in order to help improve the academic performance across the district.
We need to get kids to school on time and there every day. 38% of the students are gone more than 10%. That's 18 days of the 180. So in 10 years, that's a whole year of school they've missed. 180 days that they're not going to get back. And you can't learn if you're not in school. And as far as hiring a superintendent, we need to ask the right questions. If you get them down to 4, don't take the best candidate of a bad group. Throw them out and get the ones you want. And ask, why do you want to come to Beloit? What are your plans for Beloit? What are you going to do for Beloit, for the school district? A lot of them interview all the time, so they got a lot of answers, but maybe not the answers we're looking for. And we need to retain teachers by standing behind them and supporting them. And the principals need to stand up and support them too, and the board.
All right, Bill, thank you. Next, we will hear from Amy Levy on the topic of initiatives she might support to help improve academic performance.
Thank you so much. I think one suggestion that would be helpful is to more closely connect academic growth to the superintendent's evaluation. What gets monitored gets full attention. I think that the board can be instrumental in setting the expectation of increased family engagement. We all know that learning does not stop when that final classroom bell rings. We need to figure out how to better engage our families and community to continue to support the learning outside of the classroom. I think that every parent or guardian wants to know, is my child at, above, or below grade level? And what tools can you provide me with to help get my child where they need to be? We also need to pass a referendum in the school district of Beloit. A referendum, not necessarily for capital, but for operational, is going to help to mitigate growing class sizes. I would love to include transportation at the high school level. I think that'll be instrumental in helping with attendance concerns. making sure that our students and our educators have the resources that they need in classrooms to support students, and educator retention is huge. It's really difficult to support educators at the level that we should, at the level that they deserve, if we are also simultaneously making millions of dollars of cuts year over year. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. And the final candidate to address this particular area, Carol Fox, what initiatives would you take on or support to help improve academic performance?
I don't know that I have too much to add because I agree with what my fellow candidates have stated. The superintendent, of course, will be the key, but I'm going to be looking for a superintendent who also wants to empower teachers and really work with the staff on figuring out what the roadblocks are for our kids and what we really need to do to really improve that achievement. One of the things I think is key to that is really looking at the achievement data and being really honest about what it is and what it looks like and where we need to go from there. I think, again, to me, it's a lot of roadblocks. The attendance issue is a huge one. So how do we deal with that roadblock? What ideas do the teachers have? What ideas does the community have? Because attendance is more than just a school district problem. It reaches out into the community as well. So how do we pull in and do the parent involvement? How do we pull in and do the community involvement to get the entire community working towards and wanting good achievement from our students? We need to, we need to focus on what it is that we want. And that, I agree, we need to set goals and act and hold people accountable for those goals. And that would be the superintendent that the board would be working with. We want this kind of achievement. What do we need to do to get there? And we're going to hold you accountable for doing that. So all of those things kind of reiterate what everybody else just said. But I'm not going to say anybody's name specifically.
All right, thank you, Carol. Next question will be fielded first by Celestina Ruffini. Celestina, what do you believe a school board member can do to ensure that all decision-making and priorities remain focused on improved academic outcomes rather than other extraneous matters?
I've talked to a lot of people about the last 6 months have been a crash course on school district operations for myself. As someone who's lived here in the community now 12 years and very engaged with many schools and many teachers and staff in the community, no one is hearing the board talk about academics at a meeting. And maybe it is happening, but that's not being communicated. Not only communicated within the district, it's not being communicated to the rest of the world. And there's families making decisions on communication. And there's a lot of resources with a lot of great data that clearly explains how our district is performing compared to local peers, compared to the rest of the state. And resources like that are really easy to understand, but no one wants to talk about it. And I feel that communication is really the biggest step forward that this district needs to make to not only within board meetings, but also externally to the community, parents, and business leaders.
Thank you. Bill Johnson, what do you think as a board member you can do to ensure that those decision-making and priorities are focused on academic outcomes rather than other things?
We really need to get the parents involved. I seen at the high school when they'd have parent-teacher conferences, and they'd have like 3 parents show up. And it's heartbreaking. I mean, they gotta be involved to get the kids motivated to stay in school and do better. I don't know what we can do, as far as more information to them and stuff, and get them the reports that they're, how they're doing. I know they do quarterly and semester, but they got to get the parents involved, or grandparents, or whoever's in charge of the kids, and get the kids motivated to want to learn. And it just, I don't know. Like I said, it's just heartbreaking to see the teachers there and nobody comes for the parent-teacher conferences.
All right, Amy Levy, what can you do as a board member to ensure that those priorities remain focused on academic outcomes rather than other things?
So one thing that I believe firmly in is that board members should not always agree. I think that if we are willing to learn from each other's different perspectives, we arrive at our best decision making. With respect to ensuring that decisions are prioritized and focused on improving academic outcomes, we need to keep the students at the center of all of our decision making. And whenever possible, involve the folks that are most impacted by the decisions that we're making. If we need to make a decision to close a school or to change a curriculum or anything else that directly impacts students and families, we need to make sure that they are providing context that help us come to a robust and thoughtful decision that's going to positively impact our students and lead to those academic outcomes, but supports in other areas as well. So, and the final point, since I have a few seconds left, I think we need to be good role models for our students. I think the decisions we make matter, and how we arrive at those decisions, hopefully in a respectful manner, is equally as important. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol Fox, we move on to you. Your thoughts on what school board members can do to make sure that decision-making and priorities are focused on academic outcomes.
I've only been on the board for a few months, but it certainly has been very much of a learning experience. There's just so many things going on, and I think one of the things that we need to work on as a board is getting ourselves better organized in terms of how we work with the flow of information, how the committees and the board work together in terms of how the information flows. I did go to a WASBA thing, and there was and I probably said that wrong, but there's a lot of districts that are using a different kind of model called the governance model, where they do a lot with setting up these expectations and then setting progress monitoring goals throughout the year. So one of the things that I would like to see is I'd like to see us more frequently and have opportunities to look at data tools and to look at what the progress is that's moving us forward, and talk about what are those issues that go along with student achievement. So one of the things that goes along with that governance thing would be to set up a specific calendar for the board, so that at certain times of year, we are focused on certain issues and certain things, and that we're looking at achievement and growth data. I think one of the things we need to be focusing on a lot is growth data, but how things are moving along and how things are moving forward. And the superintendent then is accountable for that progress monitoring, and they have frequent reports for how the district is doing. And the superintendent's evaluation then is based on those progress monitoring reports, so that how well that's happening is how you evaluate your superintendent.
Thank you, Carol. The last candidate to field this question is Dan Schoof. Dan, ensuring that the board is focused on decision-making and priorities remaining in the district as far as students rather than other extraneous matters.
Thank you. My priorities are simple. Hire a superintendent that will dig in and stay, budget responsibly, and rebuild trust. I've worked at large and different organizations, and it's really easy to always say what you're doing is mission-centric. So it's really easy to say everything we do is that we get involved in as a board is for academic achievement. So we have to pull ourselves back and say, what does a board need to do? We need to hire one employee. We need to support that employee, give that person the tools they need to do the job. That person in turn reports back to us to do their work. We need to do an annual budget. We need to, when we do that, we need to weigh the needs of the community and the ability to pay for all of our sources of income. And then we need, as a board, need to rebuild trust so then it can become a virtuous cycle here. So I'm going to always say that those are the things we need to bring ourselves, stay up at that level, and that would make sure we weren't getting distracted by other matters. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. All right, the next batch of questions refers to the matter of the district's financial responsibility to the taxpayers. So question 3 in our evening will go to Bill Johnson first. And Bill, here you go. Given that the school district of Beloit reduced spending by more than $11 million in the 2024-25 school year and has relied on reserve funds to balance the budget, what specific priorities should the board focus on to both ensure long-term financial stability and academic achievement in upcoming district budgets?
I was a member of the ad hoc committee, and we advised the superintendent on a lot of things. A lot of them weren't done. We tried our best to save money going through every single school. We did the best we could. I seen a lot of waste when I was in the schools. You know, it's easy to spend somebody else's money. Well, that's not the right way to do it. We need to look at all the money and where it's going and focus the money on student achievement. I seen a couple of food trucks that we paid over $200,000 for that were never used. They never cooked on them. When they took them to the schools, they cooked in the schools and brought them out. And they're still sitting here. I seen $125 clocks in schools in each room. No, that's too much money, and that needs to be brought out. Whoever's looking at this needs to, you know, dig into that. You know, that's money that could be well spent anywhere else. I seen monitors and computers tossed out. I seen 55-inch screen TVs just smashed, and the school district replaced them, and it was kids doing it. And it's just a waste of money, and we can't afford to do that. That's all I got.
All right, Bill, thank you. Amy, priorities to assure that there is long-term financial stability and academic achievement.
Thank you. Before I get to the priorities, I just want to give a little bit of context. So school funding in Wisconsin operates under revenue limits. And a revenue limit is the number of students in the district times the amount of revenue allowed per student, and that's set by the state of Wisconsin. So once that total revenue limit is set, funding happens primarily through two sources. One is state aid, and the other is property taxes. Now, the school district of Beloit is a highly aided district. That means most of our budget comes from the state. For example, in 2024, the state provided about 92% of our budget, and local property taxpayers covered about 8%. Last year, I'm sure all of us in this room realized that there was a hike in our bill associated to taxes. Last year, the state provided 78% of our budget, and taxpayers were left with the remaining 22%, or 3 times more than the previous year. That shift in state aid is the primary reason that those increases happened so dramatically. But the thing to keep in mind is that the amount, who paid what percentage, shifted, but the district received no additional spendable dollars per pupil. So what do we do with that? I think it's a several item at a time approach. One, we need to pass an operational referendum. We need to continue to make cuts, but we need to do that as far away from the classroom as possible. And since we have been in an ongoing cycle of millions of dollars of cuts every year, that is more and more difficult to keep that away from our students. And I'm so proud that the school district Beloit is currently involved in the lawsuit to require the legislature to appropriately fund public education.
Thank you, Amy. All right, next we move on to Carol. Carol, spending in the district, what are the priorities? And what can you suggest that we might take on to ensure those long-term stability aspects of both academic achievement and school finances?
Well, I'm so glad that my colleague explained all that, because school finance is very complicated. And Beloit, unfortunately, has kind of a perfect storm of issues that come along with the financial pieces. We have high poverty, we have a lot of special ed, we have a lot of English language learners. We are highly funded by the state, but the state keeps changing how they work on it. Some of that revenue formula is pretty old and outdated. And we're not getting much in the way of extra funds for some of these extra special needs of students. And then we have declining enrollment and all those other things that are happening. So getting stable would be a really nice thing, but that's going to be a difficult thing to do. But I really think that as much as possible, the district needs to work on stabilizing the tax rate, so we're not having it jumping up and down and going all over the place. That just it makes things so difficult for our taxpayers. So we need to stabilize it. But think about your own budget. I looked at, we cut $11 million the one year, we cut $6 million the next year, we're going to cut $4.5 million coming up this year. And there's just, the more we cut, the closer we get to the students. And it's going to start really being painful. And we're going to have to start closing buildings and all of those things. It's very difficult, it's very painful, and people get upset and angry. But we do need to do the best for our kids, and without resources, it will be very hard to do that. So we need to continue to work on trying to figure out how to get our better resources and maybe still help our students.
Thank you, Carol. Dan Schoof.
I love this question.
Specific priorities?
Yep, sorry, Tim. I love this question.
Yes.
What do we do to ensure long-term financial stability? Everyone in this room loves Beloit. People watching online love this community. And I think we need to shift the narrative slightly. So what I'll look for to support a superintendent and their leadership team and the buildings is, what do we do to get out of this cycle? You cannot cut your way to prosperity. You cannot cut your way to prosperity. We need to build the future for Beloit schools. If we want 6 elementary schools, 2 junior highs, and 1 world-class high school, then let's tell people why we want it. Let's communicate what they'll get in their neighbors and friends, and let's tell them what it would take to pay for it. That's what we need to do. We cannot just continue to say 7 million, 6 million, 5 million, cut, cut, cut. That will not grow the district. We're in a growth mode in other parts of this community. We're in a growth mode in other parts of the community. Why is our school district in a cutting mode? That's crazy. We need to be back in a growth mode for this district and build that district that these people in this room and watching online are so proud of. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. And the final candidate to field this question, Celestino Ruffini.
First and foremost, the school district unfortunately has to be looked like a business. And any business you operate, just like the one I operate, has a budget. And we all have budgets at home. And you have to live within the confines of the budget. And we have to understand that as a district, we've had a trend line in losing enrollment. And we have to operate a budget that is what is reflective of the kids we're serving. That being said, Our district should be a district of choice. I talk to families each and every day that can give me a litany of reasons why they've not chose the school district of Beloit to send their children to. And I've got a rebuttal for all those reasons. But the fact is, until our district becomes a district of choice and people that live here choose to send their kids to our schools, this is going to be long-term financial stability is going to be a topic we debate for many years. I feel that there's a lot of talk around open enrollment. I feel there's a great need to ensure that the students that are residents of the school district of Beloit are attending the schools in the school district of Beloit and not attending schools outside of the open enrollment process. Not that I feel that will net a ton of students, but I do feel that that is something that needs to be looked at by the board. I feel that we need to budget as a smaller district and be comfortable with that as a community. And being this forum tonight is hosted by the Greater Beloit Economic Development Corporation, I'd be remiss to talk about the fact that there is a huge demand for housing in this community. The fact that we have nearly 1,400 acres of land planned for residential development should be a great focus of the district to net new students, of which the calculations on the enrollment study that were done could be between 800 and 1,600 additional students. And with 500 vacant residential lots as well, that's another 200 kids. 1,000 to 1,800 kids are out there as a potential to join our district.
Thank you, Celestino. All right, we're going to stay with the financial questions here. This one looks at revenue opportunities. We'll start with Amy Levy. Amy, as budget pressures continue, what role and responsibility should the school board play in identifying new revenue opportunities while ensuring that the district remains focused on academic achievement?
Thank you. Well, we just sold one, so let me back up. I think we need to be responsible with the properties that we own, which I believe that we are doing. We just sold one property. We have other properties on the market. I think being aggressive about finding placements for those would definitely help the district. We have a rental property opportunity for the operational center right there on the other side of Burger King. So being intentional about finding an entity, an appropriate entity to come in and rent that space is an opportunity for the district to bring in revenue. Renting out buildings, I know it would be more work on our business department, but I see that as an opportunity. We have a wonderful pool, a wonderful theater. We have spaces that could hold community events, and I would love to be the type of partner if we were in a financial position to not charge for that, but realistically, that's just not the landscape that is in front of us. So I think continuing to appropriately managing buildings that are no longer in use, renting wherever possible. I just named one potential item. And then looking at creative opportunities that, of course, didn't get in the way of our academic calendar to utilize our buildings to bring in additional revenues.
Thank you, Amy. Carol Fox, new revenue opportunities. What do you see out there while ensuring that the district stays focused on the academic achievement part?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is that we just are working hard on a partnership with the Hendricks Foundation. I think that's an important first step. And I'm looking for some other corporation or company or agency in this community that might step up and help with, some other initiative that we could maybe try to work towards our academic achievement. That those kinds of things are helpful. We continue to need to work with the state of Wisconsin as well on doing better with their funding formula. My understanding is that there's quite a bit of money that they're sitting on that they're not using, and they need to use it for schools. But trying to get that to happen may be beyond my wheelhouse, but we can keep trying because that needs to happen. And we mentioned earlier the lawsuit. That may take many, many years, but hopefully that will yield some benefits in terms of trying to get more and better funding for the school district. Revenue sources are hard, but we need to keep looking for how we can improve that.
Thank you, Carol. Dan Schoof, new revenue opportunities, do you see any as a potential school board member? And how do we balance that with keeping the district focused on academic achievement?
Yeah, so the Beloit School District is about a $100 million operation, about 650 employees. So any sort of rental revenue is de minimis. It's just going to be a distraction in my mind. It doesn't mean we shouldn't do it, shouldn't do these things. A well-functioning business office would go in that direction, and I'd be supportive of a well-functioning business office. I like what Carol said, in that our big revenue is the revenue that comes from the state. So we have our state senators. Mark Spreitzer is likely to have a very strong leadership role next year in the Capitol. We should work with Clint Anderson. We should work with the new governor. We should be active in those efforts to get our core revenue up. And that's where the real difference will be made. Now, long term, in a perfectly performing COLAC center, I think there opportunities that others have mentioned would be possible as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Carol, your name was invoked. Anything further to offer? All right, thank you. Celestina Ruffini, new potential revenue sources while really keeping that focus on academic achievement. What are your thoughts?
Well, I suppose I maybe jumped ahead there after the last question, so I won't harp too much terribly on the vacant residential land, other than to say that as a community, most of us I think realize we geographically can't grow. We're bounded by a state line, we're bounded by neighboring townships, and we have to be very intentional as a school board to communicate the fact that we need to work in lockstep with the city in developing the assets and the resources we have here. And that leads me to think about the assets that we do have. I'm a major proponent of reopening a middle school on the west side of the community. I think that comes with the fact that we would need to likely dispose of an existing middle school on the east side. And if we were to do that, we need to put together a plan on what's going to happen with that versus just putting a property up for sale. I think we have opportunities with district assets that if we were to sell, we can put plans together about how those could be turned into residential developments. Therefore, growing the number of people that are living and working and being educated here in the community. Very similar to what Beloit College has been doing the last couple of years of disposal of assets. I think we have to continue communicating the value received for the taxes you pay as a resident of this community, and of course, the state. The state is our district, as we've discussed. We are heavily state funded, state aid funded. State aid and its funding is definitely been proven as a broken model here in Wisconsin. It needs to be addressed, and I'm appreciative that our district's taking a major lead on that.
Thank you, Celestina. Finally, to answer this question, Bill, do you have any thoughts as it relates to identifying new revenue opportunities as a member of the board while ensuring that the district keeps their priority on academic achievement?
I'll take one more kick at the state then. I think they need to realize, they're sitting on a lot of money, and it costs a lot more to educate special needs kids, and Beloit has a lot of them. And, that costs a lot of money, and I wish that they would just put the politics aside and take care of the kids. I'm pretty sure there's about 4 or 5 parcels out there on 6th Street that the school district owns that just sit there. We could sell them. They bought before. I think there's a couple down here on 4th Street that just sit. I don't know what they did. I mean, they bought them years ago and they thought they were going to expand, but, there's nothing there. And to retain students. We can't keep losing money to other districts when the kids come out of it. I know the old BLA building is sitting there. I don't know if the school district gets any money out of it, but it's being used. And they should be paying for it. It's the custodians. So any money would help.
Thank you, Bill. All right, moving on to the next question in this series, and the final one that deals specifically with finances. We'll start with Carol Fox. Carol, a school district cannot fund every initiative at the same level. When difficult budget decisions must be made, what guiding principles should the board use to determine which programs or investments take priority?
Interesting question. The guiding principles, I think, need to be what is going to create the most academic achievement along the way. And I say that with we need to make sure that we work on not losing things like music programs and art programs, because those things do lead to academic achievement. So it's a really they're very difficult decisions to make. But we need to continue to look at the data that supports some of those programs as well. Which programs are more successful at creating the outcomes that we're looking for, and we need to be very clear again about what those outcomes are. We've had some issues with some of the programs. The DLI program we discussed last night is one of them. We need to try to maintain that as well as we can, but we're not going to be able to maintain it to the level that people are really looking for. But because we can't find the staff, there are some funding issues, though it was stated it wasn't really funding, but there are funding issues. But we need to be looking at the outcomes, what we want, and try to create as much of a program as we can to provide for the students' needs who really want those kinds of programs. So it's a balancing act, and I guess the biggest guiding principle I would go with is looking at what the outcomes are and trying to maintain those programs that provide the best outcomes.
Thank you, Carol. Dan Schoof, guiding principles you believe the board should use to determine programs and investments.
Yeah, thank you. Great question. So one of the key things I think we could do better at in the Beloit School District is an important guiding principle when it comes to this board that sits at this table here. We need to make sure that in a perfect world, when this place is running as we all expect it to in the community, is the board communicating with parents? Is the board communicating with taxpayers? Is the board communicating with families? Is the board communicating with teachers? I think a lot of the debate last night that this board had in this room was a lot of people in the community saying the communication with families in the DLI program didn't happen to the extent it should. Communication with teachers that teach in the DLI program didn't happen as it should. And, I'm not sure that's a surprise. It's not necessarily a criticism of the administration today, where we made decisions not to have the staffing level at the administration that we've had in the past, probably for good budgetary reasons. But so for a guiding principle that I would use in the future is have the relevant stakeholders, the members of this community, the people that care about this district and pay for this district, people that work in this district, have they been communicated with? People can handle tough decisions that are made for good reasons, but if you don't communicate with them, that's not a guiding principle that we should have. So thank you.
All right, next up, Celestino. Guiding principles that you believe the board should use to make some tough decisions on retaining programs, reducing programs, and the same with investments.
The work of the elected body that represents the school district is really no easy feat, and there's many difficult decisions that have to be made on a biweekly basis here in this room that have a massive effect on what is really one of the largest public entities here in this community. the board's agreement around the vision and the goals and being accountable to the taxpayers is top of mind. And it is something I have a firm belief in within my own organization, a firm belief in with the other public committees and boards that I serve on. But as a board member, I want to ensure that we work in lockstep with our vision, our goals, and we're accountable not only to each other, but to the community. Ultimately, our superintendent is the lead, and they're the face of the district. They're the ones in the public. They're the ones in the school, shepherding the message that we are agreeing upon here. And so the superintendent's lead in the community on each and every day, whether it's the grocery store, it's the gas station, it's the basketball game, or just a day at school, the superintendent's lead is something that I will seek and desire out of our next superintendent. Ultimately, students have to be able to read, they have to be able to write, they have to be able to learn and be nurtured in a culture that we are creating here in this district or as a board for this district. Those things, I think, will be top of mind if I were to be elected.
Bill Johnson, what guiding principles do you think the board needs to use to determine which programs or investments take priority?
Student achievement has to be at the top. That's the main goal of the district, is to make sure the kids are ready to go into the real world. And communication to the public, we need to get everything out there so people know, nobody gets blindsided, they know what's going on. I've always said, you know, I was a superintendent and you make decisions and people are gonna be mad, they'll get over it. You lie to them, they'll never get over it. Just be truthful, tell them what's going on and explain, you know, the district needs to do better when people try to get questions and they get, you know, put off. You know, I've heard from a lot of people that the district doesn't get back to them on questions that they asked. And then they get mad. And I understand that. They just want answers, and that's what we should be giving them. And just tell the truth and let people know, you know, what we're doing. And everything, you know, hopefully will work out, and just put the students first.
Thank you, Bill. Amy Levy will have the final say on this question regarding guiding principles the board should use when making their decisions. Amy?
Thank you. Fortunately, Beloit is a wonderfully diverse community. I think that programs that speak directly to our demographics and our mission should definitely be prioritized, specifically our DLI program. So that's a specific. In general, student impact has to be a top of mind concern. Specifically, will this improve the learning success or the well-being of our students? We have to look at equity and access. Who benefits and who is left behind in our decision making? We have to look at evidence of effectiveness. If we have a program or an investment and we can't clearly prove that this has been effective, then it makes me wonder if that is something that we should continue to do. We also need to look at cost and return on investment. What are we investing in our students, and what is the likely outcome of that investment? And then alignment to our strategic goals is so important. Once we chart a path for our district through strategic planning, we cannot do things, even though they may be good things, that are not aligned with what we have stated and agreed our strategic goals are. And throughout this process, communication and transparency is key. If you're doing great work, but you're not able to clearly communicate that work and invite others in to give impact or to give input, then there's a problem.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you, candidates. All right, we're going to switch gears a little bit, and as we get to the next question, it's likely we'll have time for this and one more, so I'm going to just take a look out there at our sponsors, and if you would like me to move into one of the other questions, we've got several prepared yet that we're not going to get to, just let me know and we'll jump to it. But this is a question regarding teacher retention. Dan Schoof is going to answer this first. Dan, Quality teachers are critical in driving student success. As a board member, how can you best support the administration in recruiting and retaining quality educators?
Thank you. Great question. It's one of our most pressing issues. One issue is this culture of cutting that we've had. Until we get some stability on their district, we're always going to have people looking around at other places. I have heard from a number of different sources that really that early career teacher is the one we're losing, the one that's figured out that teaching in a wonderfully diverse, culturally competent district that has this thing that's so strong about Beloit, the fact that we're made up of incredible community that's very diverse, teachers that want to work in that district, and they get to be 3, 4, 5 years in. That's where they're often leaving for additional dollars to other districts. So we have to take a quick look at that, a real look at that. I'm hopeful that the superintendent would bring forward a salary study, see where we're losing, exit interviews for teachers. So part of it is the big picture, the overarching, we love this community and we have to have a district that gets back into growth mode. If we can shift to that mode, we will have teachers that want to dig in, but then we have to make sure that we are paying them appropriately and having them be part of this team where they can take care of their families and grow here in the district. So thank you.
Thank you. Celestino, how do you believe you can best support the administration in teacher recruiting and retention?
Just like all of us in our workplaces, we want to be in a place where we're valued, we're supported, and we feel that we can be successful. My five things on this is remain competitive within compensation benefits. We won't always be the highest paying district, and that's okay, but we must ensure that the total compensation package is going to be strong enough to attract those new teachers, those that have been with us, or those that for years, or those that are in hard to fill areas. Secondly, when I speak to teachers, they say stability and leadership. The fact is, when they go to ask a question, by the time they get an answer, the person's already left and out the door. So how are you going to get questions answered when there's not stability and leadership? Third, working conditions. Teachers continue to look for manageable class sizes with adequate planning time, strong instructional resources, and access to the meaningful professional development that this district has afforded them and hopefully will continue to afford them. We should strengthen our partnerships with educator preparation programs, not only in the region, but throughout the Midwest, to continue to develop a local pipeline for future teachers, whether that's through mentorships or student teaching partnerships. And lastly, culture matters. Recognition, respect, and open communication are going to go a long way, and teachers want to know that their expertise is valued not only by the community, but by those that are in charge of the district. It's ultimately not one single policy, but building a district where people can do their best work.
Thank you, Celestino. Bill Johnson, your thoughts on teacher recruitment and retention as far as what the board's role in that can be?
Make sure they feel appreciated. That's the main thing. They're coming to work. They're doing, taking care of our kids, our future. Make sure they feel appreciated, and they're backed up by the board. They're backed up by principals. We need fair wages for them and a contract, and ask the teachers what they need. They're the ones that are there. They know what they need and the support they need. Other than that, make the district as desirable as you can, because it's tough recruiting teachers. There's such a small group anymore, and there's such a big demand. We have to have something that nobody else has, or we have something that's better than other people have, to get them to want to come here and then get them to stay. And the school district is a great district. We just got to sell that to the people coming out of college, and other people, maybe have been a few years and want to come to Beloit. Maybe their husband or wife are moving and they're coming here. and do the best we can, but support the teachers and make them feel appreciated.
Thank you, Bill. Amy Levy, as a board member, how can you best support the administration in recruiting and retaining quality educators?
So, of course, compensation matters. I think everyone would agree to that. Competitive pay is essential, but we also know that the quality of the work experience is important in keeping great educators in our district. One thing that we could directly do as board members is to incorporate staffing benchmarks in the superintendent's evaluation. When schools are appropriately staffed, teachers are less likely to spend their prep time covering for a colleague, and protecting that prep time improves work-life balance and hopefully reduces burnout. Continue to model and push for consistent and predictable administrative support. Teachers need to know that when they raise classroom management concerns, their building leaders will respond consistently and fairly. There's so many things that we need to be mindful of. Supporting a healthy work environment, like I mentioned, to empower strong leadership, to really listen to our teachers who are the closest to our students and working with them daily. We have had a lot of different leaders in this district, and I think we need to be sensitive that when a new leader comes, they may want to put their stamp on the district with curriculum or a set of policies or norms for the district. And because we have had frequent changes, that whiplash to our educators, I think that's something that we need to be sensitive of and to promote stability in our practices, because that's going to benefit our students, and always elevating teacher voice. We're not going to be able to provide teachers with everything that they're requesting, but knowing that we are listening with them and that we are wisely using our resources to meet the needs as best we can, I think is really important.
Thank you, Amy. And the final candidate to give us their thoughts on supporting the administration in teacher recruitment and retention is Carol Fox.
I totally agree that stable leadership is one of the most important things that we can do to help with some of the teacher retention. The constant turnover in principals and superintendents is very disconcerting. And having been both a teacher and administrator, it's very difficult to constantly be changing gears with somebody who comes in with all kinds of different ideas. We did do a survey last fall, and one of the things the teachers really requested was more involvement in decision-making. We need to empower our teachers to be much more involved in some of the decisions that are being made within the district. The other thing we need to do is really work hard to fill some of these very hard-to-fill positions. And we may need to be looking at some creative ideas with that. One of the areas that we really have a hard difficulty with is the special education staff. And if we could encourage our own staff who might be interested in that and getting further degrees and moving forward with that, if we agreed to like pay for the classwork or whatever, if they stay with us, that might help. We might also need to do some of those things for science teachers. We're having difficulties getting science teachers and other kinds of areas that are specialties. So we need to be looking at that. Another thought that when we talk about new teachers and working very hard, I'm going to steal an idea from our new assistant superintendent. She talked about the fact that we really need to set up better systems for supporting our new teachers. They need a lot more support just generally than just a mentorship program. We have that, but there needs to be more.
All right, thank you, candidates. We'll move on to what will likely be the final question. And this deals with the superintendent. So a good one to end on, perhaps. We'll start with Celestino Ruffini. Celestino, when hiring the next superintendent, what specific experiences or accomplishments would you look for first? And what measurable outcomes would you set so the board can tell whether the district is truly moving forward?
You know, turnover within superintendents is becoming really more the norm in the state as well as the nation. This revolving door of leadership is creating distrust, and especially in a small community like ours, seeing a superintendent who is present in the community and not just here within the building or periodically in the school is extremely important. This board must evaluate the superintendent, but also must be realistic and not presenting 20 or 30 different criteria or metrics that we want to see, because ultimately, I'm tired of being at the bottom. I'm tired of this district being sort of kicked to the bottom, and we are going to give someone else a turn. So frankly, I would love to see us as a board come up with 2-3 things, incremental growth to move this district in a positive direction. And as my colleague said earlier, I have a list here of every superintendent we've had since 2009. It's a long list, and I'm not going to waste my time talking about it, but I look forward to that changing. Our superintendent must be present in the schools, must be present in the community, has to put the needs of our students and of our buildings and our administrators at the top of their importance. They have to have honest communication to our staff and be committed to seeing goals achieved. We've had enough superintendents set goals. They're never here to see them accomplished, let alone to even start working on them. Ideally, it'd be nice if they've been a building principal. It's really not too much to ask.
Thank you, Celestino. Bill Johnson, what specific experiences or accomplishments do you think we should be looking for in the next superintendent, and what measurable outcomes would you like to set so you can tell whether we're moving forward?
I'll change course a little bit. We've had a lot of superintendents, but very few leaders. That's what we need, is a leader for a superintendent. You know, anybody can put their name out. There's all kinds of them out there, superintendents. But we need somebody that wants to move to Beloit and look at his record and see what he's done in the district he's been, and ask him the right questions to get here, and set goals for the superintendent. You know, maybe just one, and then make sure that he or she knows what's expected of him, and go from there. And, you know, be it the sporting events, be it the farmer's market, move to Beloit or somewhere around the district. I mean, there's ways you can get him here. I mean, you know, if you have to pay a little bit more money to get him to the district or her, that's what needs to be. We need somebody that wants to be involved in Beloit and wants to get the district where it should be and belong. It's frustrating to see us down when we could be so much better. But we need a leader to lead us.
Thank you, Bill. Amy Levy, what experiences or accomplishments would you look for in the next superintendent, and what would you set forth so that you have a good measuring stick to tell whether the district is moving forward after the hire?
Thank you. So when you read the question, the first thing that popped into my mind is Build-A-Bear. So if I could build a superintendent, one, just to clear it up in the room, we can't legally require a residency clause for our superintendent. I agree it would be great for the next superintendent to live and thrive in Beloit, but just so everyone's clear. So before I get to my build a superintendent, I think it's really important for the board to serve as an appropriate partner for the next superintendent. An entity that is not micromanaging, but is appropriately supervising, a board that works in good faith with the superintendent, and genuinely supports, because the superintendent's success is directly linked to the success of our students. So with all that as a framework, someone who has a proven track record in the things Beloit needs the most. So someone who has experience and has thrived in diverse environments, someone who has turned districts around with respect to improving academic outcomes, someone that understands that growth is so important and something that we need to highlight, someone who has experience managing a diverse workforce with varying personalities and strengths, someone who is a very strong instructional leader, because that's what we want in our building leadership and in our educators that are in the classroom. Someone that has strong financial understanding and a proven track record of using resources wisely to yield the results that are most important to us. Someone who is a good communicator, who is approachable, who can speak with anyone, with parents, with students, with industry leaders, with nonprofits. Yes, that's what I like in a superintendent.
Thank you, Amy. All right, moving up to this end of the table, Carol Fox, your thoughts on what you'd like to see in the next superintendent and how we can measure the outcomes.
Well, I'll just continue on with Amy's list, so she gets a rebuttal. Because, yeah, a wonderful list. And I really want somebody who has had some experience, hopefully as a superintendent. That, I think, would be helpful to our district. I put down the three main ones. I had a list just like Amy's. Results driven, action oriented, and inspires trust. And I believe that those sort of encapsulate the things that I'm looking for. A true visionary leader. And when we look for the outcomes, I would hope that the leader would be results-driven enough that they could help us create those outcomes, and that we could work together with the superintendent and say, these are the outcomes we're looking for. These are the progress monitoring measures that we want, and we are all going to work together to get there. Somebody, again, listens and engages, collaborative efforts, asks hard questions was one that I put down, and is willing to address hard issues, because there are a lot of hard issues, and sometimes it's difficult to really need to face them head on, but you got bravery. There's a good word. I just thought of one. A good word. I don't think I had that on my list. I'll have to add that to my list. Somebody who really is interested in results, has had a track record for coming up with results, and could help us really move the district forward, and we could set those goals to get measurable outcomes together.
Thank you, Carol. Amy, your name was invoked. Would you like a 60-second response?
I would, but I won't need the full 60 seconds. The last few things on my list that I think are critically important, and just talking about this gets me so excited. I want a strategic thinker. I want someone who can partner with the board to set a vision for our district, so we are not just in the day-to-day struggle. Ideally, what type of district do we want to provide for our babies? I want someone who's committed to equity, who's not afraid to address disparities, and someone who has the compassion and the thoughtfulness to inspire.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you. Thank you. And now, Dan Schoof, you get the final word on this particular topic. What would you like to see in the next superintendent as you approach the hiring, and how will we know whether we're truly moving forward once that hire is made?
Yeah, great answers so far. Agree with what's been said. It's the single most important decision that we'll make as a board, is how we hire this next superintendent. The single most important decision we will make as a board is who we hire as a superintendent. So when we get to that place where are in that place where Dr. Anderson had said this will be his last year here, and we are going to go out to a search, we need the entire community to be ready to recruit, because we're going to go out, and in my opinion, it won't be my decision, a board makes the decision. In my opinion, we should do a search, even if we have strong internal candidates. In my experience, internal candidates get stronger when they win a full search process. So we need the entire community, teachers, property owners, families, parents, organizations, everyone to be supporting that effort that, hey, we're ready. This community is ready to get into growth mode. We're ready to support that superintendent. I want that superintendent to quickly figure out how how we have those Hall of Fame principals in our buildings. We have 10 principals. You all should know the principals' names. You don't need to know the names up here. I want you to know the names of the principals and the superintendent. We need the next Mike Walls. We need the next Rosa Smith. We need the next Jim Fitzpatrick. We need the next Betty Lang. We need leaders that are here to run this district and be proud of us. They run a 650 person, $100+ million organization that is vital to all of our success. This is the most important job in Beloit, and we want you all to be involved in it. So thank you.
Thank you, and that's the last question we're going to have time for. So it is now time to move on to closing remarks from our candidates. Each candidate has up to 1 minute to make their final remarks. We'll go in reverse order of the way we began this evening. So we will start with Amy Levy.
Thank you. Again, thank you to our organizers and our moderator. You did a fantastic job this evening. Our timer. Thank you to everyone in the room. I'm so excited to see a couple young folks here. Hopefully we didn't bore you with our responses. Thank you for staying and being attentive. I am so deeply invested in this community. It has been a privilege to serve on the school district of Beloit. I would be really excited to continue that. We have so much work ahead, but I know that we can do it. When we come together as a board and a superintendent and a community, we can make great things happen for our students. So please don't let this be the end of your involvement, because the new board is going to need you. The new superintendent is going to need you, your ideas, your willingness to work alongside us. So again, thank you everyone, and everyone who's viewing or will watch this in the future.
Thank you, Amy. Bill Johnson, your final remarks.
I'd just like to thank the other candidates for running, for everybody that showed up here and listened to and make your decisions on who to vote for. I'm first on the ballot, so you don't have to go far down. You can just mark my name. Hiring a superintendent and getting the district in the right direction is the biggest need we have. And you know, we can get somebody that can stay and get us into the future and work with the board and the board work with them, you know, get the district back to when it was really great. It's great now, but we can make it a lot better. And best of luck to all the candidates, and thank you all for coming. And let's get a leader this time.
All right, thank you, Bill. Let's hear the closing remarks of Celestina Ruffini.
Thank you to all of my fellow candidates, first and foremost, for stepping up to serve. I'm unique compared to my peers because of these two commitments. First, I'm running a $0 campaign. I want to show that leadership at this level should be guided by values and accountability, not financial contributions from anyone, including myself. Second, I continue to not seek or accept endorsements. Whether I win or lose, I want to stay accountable only to the voters and to the commitments I've made publicly. This campaign for me is about purpose, not promotion. And my purpose is centered on upholding a culture that nurtures student achievement with bold expectations, participating in the critical selection of the next superintendent, ensuring fiscal stability and stewardship of taxpayer dollars, and focusing on what needs to happen in our schools rather than recommending how it should happen. I'm Celestina Ruffini, and I respectfully ask for your vote on April 7th. Thank you much.
Thank you, Celestina. Next, the closing thoughts from Dan Schoof.
Thank you. Thank you again to the Chamber, the GBEDC, Rock County First, and LaVose for live casting this tonight, and thanks for everyone who engaged in these forums. I want to thank the other candidates, Amy and Bill and Celestino and Carol. Thank you. This is not easy to do this. Thank you for stepping forward. As you make your decision, I'll come back to what matters most. Student achievement at the center, supported by strong leadership, responsible budgeting, and a board that has that rebuilds trust. What separates me is experience. I've led complex organizations. I've managed budgets. I've helped understand the proper role of the board at each and every place that I've been at. If you're looking for steady leadership and disciplined governance focused on results, I'd be honored to earn one of your 3 votes. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. And I'm going to call an audible, and we're not going to give each of the other candidates you mentioned another 60 seconds, but instead we will move on to Carol Fox's final thoughts.
I too want to thank everybody for being here, and I particularly want to thank the audience members for being here. My particular belief is, while as a board and a school district, we need to face these challenges head on, focus on student achievement, and figure out what and hire a visionary leader. We need the community to be coming along with us. We need the community to support us. We need the community to work with us. We have to be reaching out to the community for a lot of the broader issues that are affecting the school district together. I mean, we mentioned some things like the chronic absenteeism. We mentioned things like property tax and all of these things that affect the community. So we need to work together as partners for the better good of our community, for the better good of our school district, and first and foremost, the better good of our students. So I would love to work with you on that. I would like to continue my work, so please vote.
Thank you, candidates, and that does conclude tonight's forum. Thank you again for attending or viewing and being engaged in the future of the community. Now we can finally give a warm round of applause to all the candidates this evening. Thank you, candidates, and if you would be so kind, please stick around. We want to take a group photo before we send you on your way this evening. Everybody, yes. A reminder that early voting begins next Tuesday, the 24th. Election Day is Tuesday, April 7th. If you require any additional spring election information, we encourage you to go to the Spring Election Hub at rockcountyfirst.com. As a reminder, the video of tonight's forum will be available on both the school districts and the Rock County First YouTube channels and on Laveaux de Beloit's Facebook page. For those who could not join us this evening, please let them know that they can go to any of those sites to view the forum at their leisure before making their vote. One final note, the sponsors of tonight's forum will be donating $1,000 to the district for their support of tonight's event. The assistance has been very much appreciated. Now that we've heard from all the candidates on the key issues, let's build a stronger Beloit. And let's do that together by getting out and voting Tuesday, April 7th, or utilize the absentee and early voting options to be sure your voice is heard. On your way out, please help yourselves to any additional refreshments. Have a safe travel home. Good evening, everyone.